Let's practice on the selection. Our first program is a simple program. You are to read couple of numbers and you will have some sign between them that will indicate if the user would like to do addition, subtraction, float division, or multiplication. And then you just apply it. So overall you need the plus, minus, asterisk, and division one. If it happens that the user is asking for a division and the second number, the denominator, is 0, you are to print NA. For example, if the user entered 7 plus 55, you will print 62. 7 times 10, you will 70. 5 divided by 0, this is impossible, so you just say NA. As I told you before, try always to challenge yourself. Stop the video, come up with your own code and compare it with mine. So the solution for this problem is very straightforward. We first need to read the input and split it. So it's going to give us 3 strings. We'll take the first and last number and convert them to a couple of numbers. And then it seems we need a flow with, is it an addition operation, is it minus operation, is it asterisk operation. So if as plus, we just print the plus of the two numbers. Minus, we print the minus. Asterisk, we print the asterisk. Otherwise, it should be the division. Then we need to verify. If the second number is greater than 0, we divide it. Otherwise, we print NA. We assume here definitely that the user isn't going to give us some weird input. And most of the time, I'm assuming that the user is giving for our programs correct input. Let's go with the second problem. You are to read 2 integers and get the minimum between them. You shouldn't use the min function from Python. Just write your own code. If you have 2 numbers like 10 and 20, your output should be 10, which is the minimum here. But if the input is 70 and 5, your output should be 5, which is the minimum here. Give a try by yourself first. Here we are going to read that couple of numbers. This is very straightforward program. If number 1 less than number 2, we print number 1. Otherwise, we print number 2. Let's move to a bigger challenge. We now will read 3 numbers and would like to print the minimum of them. For example, if you have 10.5, 20, 30, then we should print 10.5. 75, 15, we should print 5. Again, you shouldn't use the min function from the Python. I'm going to show you 3 ways to implement this function and the differences between them. So I would like you to think a lot about the different ways to implement this problem. So let's go with the easiest one. Let's read the 3 numbers, map them to float. So we have now number 1, number 2, and number 3. If number 1 is less than number 2, we're going to do some logic. Else we're going to do some logic. So if number 1 is less than number 2, all what we need to think about it now is number 1 is less than number 3 also or not? So if number 1 is less than number 3, we print number 1. Otherwise, we print number 3. We don't need to care anymore about number 2 because we are definitely sure that number 1 is less than number 2. In the other case, we know that number 2 is less than number 1. But the question now, is number 2 less than number 3 or not? So we again are going to some if else here. In terms of tracing, let's say we entered input like 3, 2, 1. So now it would be like, is 3 less than 2? The answer is no. So we go here. Now we have the 2 and 1. Is 2 less than 1? The answer is no. So print 1 from number 3. Let's make it in a different way. We are going to make it only with a couple of if conditions in a simpler way. We're going to say, what would make number 1 the answer? If number 1 is less than 2, number 2, and also less than number 3, then definitely it is the answer. Otherwise, for number 2, if it is less than number 1 and the number 2 is less than number 3, then again definitely number 2 is the answer. Otherwise, there must be number 3 is the answer. So now we made one single condition to check if a single number is less than every other number. Now, there is an issue with this solution and the previous one. They are correct, so it is an issue about correctness. Think beyond that. Give yourself a chance to think about it. What would happen if we have 10 numbers, not just 3? For example, in this solution, which will be a bit easier than previous one, you will need 10 if conditions. In every if condition, you will have to do a comparison between a number and the other 9 numbers, which is big hassle. So the question here, how to make a code, if you have 10 numbers, how to make your code much easier, for example. This is a very nice approach to solve the problem here. We are going to define some temporary value and make an iterative comparison to decide the minimum one. For example, I'm putting answer here to be number 1. So I'm saying so far maybe number 1 is the answer. And then I move to number 2 and compare it with the answer. If number 2 is better, then we assign it. Then we move to number 3. If it is better, we assign it, and so on. Now imagine if we have 10 numbers, we will have 10 simple if condition. That's all. In reality, this is relevant to something we call scalability. Scalability is a very important industrial concept. Think about some websites you access. If they have only 10,000 users, they get very slow. Some other websites, if they have 10 million users, they start to get slow. But think about something like Facebook. They are handling like maybe 1 billion or 2 users. This is a lot, right? So when your approach is scale well in a better way with more and more entries or numbers and so on, this is a very interesting advantage. That's all.